Hi, Rama. It's week 22, day 4 of our Bible narrative reading plan. Today we see the end of the saga of Absalom here in 2 Samuel 18. Absalom has rebelled against his father David, and David has tried to avoid this battle, not wanting to fight against his son, as you can imagine. But now the battle is about to take place, and David wants to go out into battle, but his soldiers say, no, that would not be a good idea, David. They would... If they happen to kill you in battle, it would be over for all of us. You are far more valuable than any of us are. But it's just so interesting to me to think that the previous time when David did not go out into battle as the kings did, that was when he committed the sin with Bathsheba, and that is what has brought about all of these consequences that David is still dealing with. And now, as at least some of those consequences are coming to resolution in the death of Absalom, yet again, David is not able to go out into battle. The battle takes place, and we see that actually making it through the woods is more difficult than the fight. David makes clear before the battle is to begin that his generals, and everyone is in hearing distance of this, that the generals, no one is to lay a hand on Absalom. He wants them to deal gently with Absalom. Again, you see a father's heart, but you also see a bit of weakness in David's fathering, because the rebellion of his son Absalom can't go unpunished, and yet David continues to want to just deal with this gently, really passively, not really even wanting to deal with it at all in some ways. And so David says, don't touch Absalom. Everybody hears this, everybody knows this, but then Absalom is caught in a tree. In some way, we're not entirely clear of the picture, but it seems like his hair, his thick hair that we've already learned about in 2 Samuel, is caught up in the branches of a tree. And as he's hanging there, a soldier passes by and says, I'm not going to touch the Lord's anointed, so to speak. I'm not going to touch the king's son. But Joab, the general of the armies, he hears about this and he can't believe it. He thinks he knows better than the king. He knows that Absalom's rebellion must be crushed. And so Absalom can't believe the soldier hasn't done it. And the soldier says, look, I don't care how much money you pay me. I know that if I had done that and the king found out, you would have just let me take the fall for it. So Joab, I'm not going to touch the king's son. So Joab himself pierces the king's son. He throws the spear, and Joab's servant also makes sure that he's dead. And so once this happens, the trumpet is blown, the battle is over, and now it's time for the news to return to the king. Now, you see there in 18, verse 19, Ahimaaz, the son of Zadok, we've seen him before as being David's messenger, and perhaps it seems as if he wants to get the word to David because perhaps he can break this news gently to David. But Joab says, no, you don't need to be the one to do that, and he sends someone else along the way. But then Ahimaaz wants to really do this. He wants to deliver the news to the king, again, probably because of his great relationship with the king. And so Joab gives him permission, and he actually outruns this Cushite. But then when the time comes, Ahimaaz doesn't have the heart to actually say what's happened to Absalom. And so he tells David the victory has been won. And then the Cushite arrives and again also says the battle's over, the victory is won. And David presses for clarity what has happened to Absalom. And so they must tell him that Absalom has died. And we see at the end of the chapter that David is weeping profoundly for his son Absalom. 5 times in the last verse of the chapter, he's crying out for his son Absalom. And certainly in this, there we see a father's heart, but we also see most likely the guilt and the conviction that comes because David understands all of this, all of the turmoil in his life has happened because of that one moment of weakness, that sin with Bathsheba that we read about all the way so many chapters ago. Even as this portion of the story is coming to an end, David is continuing to deal with the consequences because he was told that the sword would never pass from his house. There would be pain and sorrow in his house because of his own sin. As we conclude this chapter, I just want to give you a brief word of encouragement because as you see here, one son of David is killed. He is pierced and he is buried, piled up with stones, perhaps representing stoning. But he dies, and his sins justly deserve this death. He does not atone for anyone by his death. But there's another son of David coming, the true and greater son of David, who one day will also be pierced, hanging from a tree. He will be buried in a borrowed tomb. But unlike this son, Absalom, The greater Son of David, King Jesus, he rises again. His death atones for our sins, and in that we can take confidence. Here's a summary of today's reading. For more information, go to tunemyheart.org.